Hello, welcome back to INFJ. Today we are talking about self-compassion. So self-compassion in psychology is the practice of being warm, understanding, and supportive towards oneself during times of pain, failure, or inadequacy, rather than being harshly self-critical. Although this is a psychological topic, compassion, we are going to view it through an MBTI, INFJ, or my lens. My inspiration for this video is drawn from the Cancer Capricorn axis. So if you don't know what that means, Cancer represents mood swings and emotional awareness. Capricorn represents routine and being an automaton. So I'm a Capricorn, so I bring together routine and emotional awareness. If none of this makes sense, then just keep watching because we are going to deconstruct this as an INFJ or just as me. Any psychological topic, it gets really subjective really quickly. So, YouTube is for entertainment purposes. I'm not a therapist. This is not professional anything. So, INFJ dominant function is introverted intuition, or NI, and our inferior function is extroverted sensing. Introverted intuition takes in information. Introverted intuition takes in a lot of information until a behavior repeats, or typically until a behavior is tied into a relationship to something. The more a behavior repeats, the more a behavior is tied into a relationship, the more introverted intuition notices. The less a behavior repeats, the more introverted intuition does not note it. Introverted intuition is looking for psychological or behavioral information. This relates to compassion because the INFJ is always taking in more information. I'm not a brain trainer for self-development, but self-development people talk about curiosity. So curiosity is kind of like the starting point for INFJs and me and self-compassion. It's very good for your brain. It allows your brain to stay open and flexible. So we stay open and flexible to multiple perspectives. So as an INFJ, our introverted intuition can stay open and curious about our compassionate side and our self-judging side because we need both. And so if self-compassion is good and self-compassionate is bad, right, there's those common connotations we're going to kind of deconstruct a little bit, but these are absolutes. And you can use your introverted intuition to listen to both of these perspectives, and you can round out how you view your successes and your failures. So we're going to talk about an example where I'm going to talk about using introverted intuition to be balanced between compassion and self-judgment. So if I trip over my words and I quit YouTube, then I may be into the self-judging side, maybe too much. Now, I trip over my words all the time. If you're a speaker, like a really well-spoken speaker, maybe that's different, But that's just an example. But if making YouTube videos makes me really upset and I continue to do it without a solid reason, maybe. So for example, if I'm not doing it out of duty or creativity or motivation, and it's I have a not so good relationship with it, whatever that looks like, whatever that is, then maybe I'm being too compassionate. Maybe maladjusted compassion could be confirmation seeking or something enabling. Depends on all of this. Introverted intuition has us notice how we treat ourselves. So by taking stock in how compassionate I am and how judgmental I am, I'm noticing how I'm treating myself. Secondly, it is about emotional flexibility. So curiosity is kind of perspectives or the self-perspective really, is about perspective and your brain openness, your flexibility to these concepts. And then secondly, it's about emotional flexibility. So this is how an INFJ is set up. So to an INFP, another very psychologically inclined MBTI type, they would be feeling first and concepts second. So you see how this differs. This is so subjective. So INFJs and ISFJs have auxiliary extroverted feeling and demonstrative introverted feeling. If you're not into MBTI, this means INFJs and ISFJs have access to a wide range of emotions. And so we are going to talk about INFJ today. We are able to feel other people's emotions and our own emotions deeply. Other NFs are able to do this, maybe INFJs and ENFPs, maybe best for this, but everybody has their own method. It was thought of like, uh, you know, it used to be something like introverted thinking, like wasn't like geared towards emotions, but like introverted thinking has a great capacity to also deconstruct and feel emotions, right? So cognitive function does not translate to the actual manifestation of what it is. Anyway, so when you feel others' emotions, you feel connected, you feel not alone, and you feel as though your struggles are a part of the human experience. That's extroverted feeling. And also can be introverted feeling rhetoric as well, or mindset as well. When you feel your own emotions, you know that you have a unique perspective on where your life is in accordance with you and your own identity. That's like introverted feeling. How this looks like in real life is how you process emotions. So I have always on my old, this is my old YouTube channel, but on my old YouTube channel as well, advocated that processing emotions for myself includes processing both positive and negative emotions. I always viewed them as kind of equal, as both, both, yeah, equal. So think if someone gets in a car accident, that is a huge impact on their life that they have to process. We know this. But what if someone wins the lottery? That is also a huge force on their life that they need to process. The process of emotions for INFJ is to objectively move through your emotions regarding a subject, so regarding the situation. Some days you will feel more powerful than your emotions. Some days you will just feel like crying. Some days you will feel like putting your emotions into art. So that is very Cancer energy. That is, and so being an INFJ, being a Capricorn, I'm always looking at that perspective because Cancer energy is kind of all over the place and is not routine. It's cyclical in its own way, but it's very mood swing. So Capricorn really has to acknowledge that side of us because we prefer routine. We do. And so this is where we bring in Capricorn routine. We saturate it with knowing how our emotions impact us. Now, this is kind of getting into Libra territory because we are talking about balance between an axis, the Capricorn-Cancer axis. So I wanted to keep this video concise because self-compassion is subjective. Some people need to do yoga, some people need to meditate. Some people need to exercise. The medium shifts, but alignment to the self persists. So, right, when we talk about self-compassion, when we talk about mental health, we have to kind of consider it and discern it, right? So if I came on here and if I said, I'm a bodybuilder, would you believe me? Would you? So I bring this example because compassion is hard. Compassion is not a Disney princess playing with the sweet animals. Compassion is hard work. The bodybuilder, someone's a bodybuilder because they have their routine, they have their dedication, they have the results, they have the evidence. There is not as readily physical evidence for mental health things the way that people like to think there might be. I don't know. But, right, so we kind of use curiosity because our mental health does not have to be perfect. And, I'm an INFJ. I think everybody I've met ever in my life has told me their mental health is perfect, right? And so, right, so discerning, we discern if someone's a bodybuilder. Do we discern if someone is a psychological, behavioral, or mental health bodybuilder? That's something like our society really needs. We really, it takes work. It takes grit. It's hard. It takes balance. It takes critical thinking. It takes all of these things. Self-compassion is a luxury. It is hard to get to a place where you can even think about it, let alone work on it. So, right, so the first thing is to be curious. If I said I had mental health figured out and I stopped being curious for me and my person, right? I always look over at INFPs because they are also good at these things and they don't think anything like INFJs, right? Yeah, the first step for me is always to be curious and we all can be curious. I was rooting for you. We were all rooting for you. And so we are just like really that curiosity, that discernment, that grit, all of those things are like really important when we think about INFJ self compassion. Subscribe.